Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the CSA Career Pathways in Cricket webinar series, the first one of its kind. Today, we will be looking at the on-field career opportunities as well as pathways to success. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of today's webinar, just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Lita Gqana. I know you're about to hear my voice for the next 90 minutes, but I'll just tell you a bit about my background. I was a huge cricket fan growing up, watched a lot of cricket. Favorite player was Herschel Gibbs. And then fortunately enough to play cricket as a youngster during my youth, not that good, which then led me to my career in scoring, which was short-lived, but I scored for 3 years in high school before then eventually going to do my tertiary studies, which then led me to study and graduate in a BA communications degree at UJ, which then I followed up with, fortunately enough, in the same year as I graduated, an internship at CSA. That really then began my journey within cricket. I was fortunate enough to be placed at the Northern Cricket Union, Titans, as well as Western Province Cricket Union, where I ended up also working for, obviously, the Cape Cobras, as they were known back then. Before then, I then ended up years later at CSA, fortunately enough, where now I am serving as the media manager of the Proteas women, as well as all the Proteas and also the women's structure from domestic cricket all the way down to under-19 cricket and youth cricket. But that is it from my side. And then I'll also like to introduce a colleague of mine, Alungi Lenyakambi, who will be handling the chat box. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you would like on the chat box, and we'll get our esteemed panelists to answer your questions as best as they can, and also just provide that information that you all here gathered for today. Before we go into reviewing our guests and speaking to them, I'd like to showcase a couple of properties that CSA is very proud of, mainly cricket, KFC mini cricket program, which has been running for over 20 years. In the last 40 years, actually, it's been one of the most foundational cricket programs, not only in South Africa but in Africa, and also one of the leading programs in the world. So I'll just like my colleague to play, to show us the graphic of the impact of that we had in 2022-23 season, which really illustrates the breadth and the strength of this program across the country. We've got over 100,000 schools that are involved, over 300,000 kids that are involved. We'll just open up the slide and then I'll show you guys. I see we've got more participants joining up a bit late. Yeah. All right, we'll just pin this now. Find it. I'm not finding you. He's still on here. Just give me a second. Hello, are you winning there? No, it's not presenting. I'll share screen. Apologies, guys, got some technical difficulties here. But the program has, as I said, has been extensive in terms of the success it's had within cricket in South Africa. Where a various amount of, as I said, players, volunteer coaches, which are stem from the schools, as well as the hubs and the cricket clubs that exist, and we've got a huge amount of success stories and successes that have come from there. As I said, it's a foundational program where people from players to coaches start. There you go. Just a little big screen there, please. There you go. As I said, the KFC Mini Cricket Program is the first stage truly of cricket for aspirant young boys and girls. they are introduced to the soft ball level of the game, which gives the children the enjoyment that comes with participating, obviously, in a team sport, and also gets them acquainted with the basics of the game, including batting, bowling, and fielding as well. As you can see, they vast amount of success in the last season. Over 13,000 coaches have been involved, over 6,000 schools as well. As I said earlier, over 123,000 kids took part this season, as well as 1,141 coaches as well who were present at the regional festivals. And on top of that, we had over 5,250 kids as well who attended the community festivals, which take place around the country. And then we also had numerous amount of fixtures. We had one day earlier this season as well where we played over 50,000 games across the country. In total, that ended up on 71,567, as well as also going through the regional festivals. They were also in the 200s. And then the kids who have attended all the festivals this season, they range to your 9,000 mark as well. So that's an incredible achievement by this program. As I said, it's been going for the last 40 years, celebrating its 40th year of existence this year, after it was obviously incepted in 1982. And just to, if you see there in the colorful text there at the bottom, it's the CSA Cricket Pathway. As I said, KFC Mini Cricket is truly the foundation of this of cricket in South Africa. And then you obviously go through then your schools, meso and hub systems, which you then hopefully, if you perform well enough, will take you to the S under 19 level, men and women. And then from there onwards, you're now a senior, so you can also have the option of playing club and varsity cricket. And obviously the next step from there will be performing at the domestic level, when hopefully you'll be able to realize your dream of being a Proteas woman or men player. Another very exciting aspect that was celebrated recently, actually this month, as part of CSA's Youth Month initiative, was the CSA 2023 National Academy for both men and women. It launched again for the first time in about 2 to 3 years since the COVID pandemic. So the 2 squads are actually currently in Pretoria at the moment. We've got one of the coaches here, but I won't give it up too early. We've got one of the coaches present here today as well, who will be able to just talk us through, what they're up to, and also just her career as well. So it's a really, for a player, and it's not just for a player, but a coach, any other discipline that we'll go into now as well. Really, the pathway stays the same. KFC Mini Cricket all the way up to Proteas women and men level. So it's really exciting. And I think I hope this provides a little bit of a picture of what an individual will have to go through if they want to have a career, and a successful one, so in cricket. Just the next slide. So I'm going to show you a bit of a video of how the launch took place in Pretoria on the 6th of June earlier this year. Alu, can I ask you just to press play, please? Thank you. Audio. I knew the use of
the academy is a pivotal as far as taking us from future opportunities. And if you look at the current national team, 21, more than 10 players that they came through the national academy.
What I'm most looking forward to is just to develop in the next space that's we essentially kicking us at the moment. But it's such a important thought. I'm so glad that National Academy is back. It forms a very important part of sustainability and development of the program. And we talk about international cricket the whole time as coaches, and we talk about our international football and that sort of stuff. And I'm definitely like to allows you to be that, allows you to see expresses as cricket and you've got a professional watch, you've got to be disciplined. So I think
conditions and also different circumstances of families. Center around challenging and putting in situations themselves. Can we get them to wear smarter? Can we get them to understand what is required for them to be right now? This make sure that specialists sit in each and every for them to understand.
Thank you so much, Lou. Just moving on to the next slide on the presentation. We're actually now entering the phase that we all, I think, here for today, which is looking at taking a deeper look into the various roles that exist within cricket in South Africa. Now, obviously, today's episode is looking at the on-field side of things, and it's really a vast, as someone who began working in cricket, falling in love with cricket and the game at a young age, you're really shocked at what you don't know about the game and what you don't know about the people that are involved on the behind the scenes, because you only see the players, umpires, etc. But there's a lot of individuals behind the scenes on the field on the field side that that play a huge role in making sure that the on-field success remains successful, as I said, and also they're very important in ensuring that the players also perform at the optimum level as well. And before we go into and looking at the specific roles, I just have a few questions for you as the audience, for you to ask yourself before we head into today's webinar. And these are very, broad in terms of how you choose your career. It's very important to ask yourself these questions, because we all are different, we all have different passions, we all have different drivers, we all have a different why. And I think if you ask yourself these questions beforehand, before you embark on any journey, such as, as you said, you want to work in cricket or you want to work in any other industry, you really need to ask yourself and do an introspection first before you look to what will work for you and what will, what you can be successful in as well. So here, as you can see, question about your interests and passion, your questions about the activities and subjects that you enjoy for all our young viewers, your strengths and skills. It's very important to also know that about yourself and really work on your skills and your strengths, and then also work to improve your weaknesses as well. And then also very important, it's what you're naturally good at. I'm an individual who loves sport, and I was very fortunate as well to end up working in the industry. So it's very important to understand what your niche is and what you really enjoy and what you're good at. And then also your values and priorities. I think we're all, as I said, we're all driven by different values and different backgrounds. So it's very important to also identify what's important to you, what is your priority, what is your value, and what's going to bring you the best happiness in life. So that is very important. And we'll move over to our next slide now, where we're going to, as I said, look into the specific roles that exist within cricket. And just looking at the first one, obviously the typical one, as I mentioned earlier, you know your players, you know your scorers, you know your umpires, but not a lot of people know about your physiotherapists, your bowling coaches, your batting coaches, your fielding coaches, obviously in the specific disciplines. Also the individuals that look after the ground, making sure that the grass remains manicured and is as lush as possible for all the players. And you also have your umpire, as obviously the most important man in the middle when it comes to decisions. And then you also, a woman, sorry, in the middle. And then also you have your scorer. As I said, this one is quite personal to me, as I spent about 4 years being a scorer in high school. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you got your physiotherapist and your strength and conditioning coach, who ensures the fitness levels as well remain at optimum level. And then you also have your team doctor, I think, quote unquote, the most important person to ensure that everyone is healthy and ready to, to give it their all on the field. And then closer look, we have your team psychologist, your team manager, who really handles all the team logistics. And then you also have your team massage therapist, as well as your videographer and photographer as well. Those are all career pathways that exist within cricket. They exist within CSA and Cricket South Africa, and also as part of the various teams that you'll find domestically as well. Most franchises, most provinces do have a lot of these roles taken care of. And it's very important, as I said, to ensure that not only those 11 players on the field, but the whole organization and team is a harmonious one, and they're all working together to ensure, at the end of the day, that result comes our way. To introduce our first guest, I will just like to focus on the physiotherapist. This individual is one of the happiest men you'll ever find in your life. His name is Molebatsi Theletsane. He is a Proteas woman physiotherapist over the last 5 to 6 years. He's been to numerous World Cups. He was also part of the team that made history this season by reaching the first ever World Cup final for South African team, senior team. So I would like to invite Mr. Molebatsi Theletsane to join us via Zoom and switch on his camera, please.
Evening, Lita.
Molebatsi, are you there?
Can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me?
Go, sir. Can you hear me?
Can you hear
I
me?
think you're still unmuted. Yes, I can. How are you, sir?
No, you're loud and clear. You're loud and clear.
I hope you're well today.
Surviving against odds.
Molebatsi, let's dive straight into it. As I said, you've been at the national level for quite a while now. You've been working in the industry, various sports as well before cricket. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself to get us started, so everyone can get to know who Molebatsi Theletsane is?
Okay, Lita. Molebatsi Theletsane is the name. All the way from Botshabelo in the Free State. Studied at COFSIS, which is the University of the Free State. Qualified 2012. Didn't enjoy hospital that much, so started off at the Knights. That's where my career in cricket started there. And then from the Knights, SA Under-19 boys, academy, all the way to the Protea women. Yeah, that's right much about me.
Mo, obviously, as I said earlier, you've worked in other sporting codes as well. How does the physiotherapist in cricket differ from all the other sports?
To tell the truth, there's not much difference, because everything is all the same. We all do the same thing: injury prevention and treating injuries, just to keep players fit. But in cricket, it differs in the way that the tours are a bit longer, unlike your soccer, your rugby, your other sporting codes. It's always like few days there. So they end up being like 4 to 6 weeks in a tour, treating injuries, deciding which ones will last the whole tour, or this one must go home, all those things. I think that's where the difference is. But all in all, it's just the same purpose, to treat the injuries.
Got you. And then what qualifications and experience were necessary for you to get where you are right now?
It's like a 4-year degree, honors degree, which you can get in various universities. So basically from grade 12, you're gonna need your sciences, maths, and biology. Then you just do your 4-year degree, and then after that 4-year degree, you just go do one, they call it a community service, where you do 1 year of that, and then after that, you are now independent, you can do whatever you want to do, go anywhere.
Okay. And obviously, I mean, as I said earlier, it's not necessarily the most glamorous of roles, especially publicly well known. So what drove you into this field? You know, as obviously you studied medicine, but what drove you specifically into sport and physiotherapy?
Honestly, being a young boy, I've always liked sports. I love sports. I love treating injuries for no funny reason. I used to put ice on everyone, even when I was young. So the main reason I studied physio was just sport, but I didn't know about the hospital part, which to my surprise, when I got to the varsity, they were like, yes, you also do hospitals. Not a fan of hospitals, but I was like, it's fine. I'm just gonna suck it up and do everything. So I did what I did. Luckily, I was just fortunate enough to not to spend a lot of time in hospitals after I qualified. So even at varsity, I was already doing teams at the varsity, doing sports on weekends, all those things. Working at the rugby, I worked a lot at the rugby. Yeah, that's what I thought I was gonna work in when I'm qualified. But yeah, turned out to be cricket. Did a lot of athletics, all different sports, because soccer and all those. So yeah, so that was my passion while I was young.
Yeah, and obviously, as you said, you thought you were going to end up in rugby, but now when you get into your first cricket team and working with cricket now on a full-time basis, what was the one shocking thing, particularly even in the injuries that you're working with? You know, in rugby, you're dealing with hard impact injuries, and in cricket, it might be you know, muscular, etc. So how different is it in terms of the injuries that you treat?
I think the shock first when you get to the team and you see this guys like, oh, the last time I saw them was on TV, and then just get there like big guys, big names and all that. But it's still the same. You still treat the injury like an injury. The most common things, like I've realized in cricket, is just more like your overuse injuries. It's like a bowler who always bowls his right shoulder. Then you get those type of injuries. That's why workload maintenance is very, very important, and all those things, just to prevent injuries that come in. Your shoulders, your back, your knees, and everything, because it's just repetitive movement over and over again. So just have to find a way to keep them happy, to keep them injury-free, and when you treat the injuries, for them to get back into the field as soon as possible. Sure. That's all the main focus.
100%. And now, obviously, when an injury happens on the field, we see you running on there, but a lot of people don't understand what the process is that you have when you get on there, you know, whether it's an injury or if a player's been hit on the head, etc. Can you just share some insight in terms of what processes do you go through as a physiotherapist as soon as someone says, Mo, there's an injury on the field?
The first thing is to check your small bag that you have everything. In that small bag, you'll have your pain meds, the cold spray, which everyone calls the magic spray, and then you'll have your strappings and all the tapes that you can need just to get into the field. Obviously, by getting, you're gonna have to assess first what happened. Then from assessing, then you just take it from there. Usually, it's just some time for them to get a breather and then slow the rate down and the time down as well, just for them to keep, depending if you want to shift the momentum or not. So you can just around play with it and all that. But basically, just to assess what happened. If it's like a head injury, that's where you do all your tests that you do and then see if the player is still fine or not. Otherwise, if it's something that you can't treat into the field, then you're allowed to take them out. Then you'll do a full assessment in the medical room at the back there, and then they're allowed to go back in there. So basically, to run in is just for that assessment to check if the player is still fine, and then take it from there.
Awesome stuff. And obviously, I mentioned earlier that it's all about collaboration. In a team sport, you are not a man mountain. You know, you're not alone. How important is collaboration in your field, number one? And number two, how do you go about collaborating, whether it's your colleagues, coaches, your strength and conditioning coach, or even your players?
That is key. It's actually important. Starting off with the medical team, you know, you have a doctor, you have the SNC, and then you have me. I have to take the blame because I'm the one running into the field. First man at the scene, it's always me. So just assessing and everything. Then from there, if it's like, okay, something's not right, then you can just take him or her out. And then the doctor can come and do her assessment. And then that's where you collaborate with everyone. Like do the assessment, like, okay, make a decision of whether the player is going back in or not. Then from there, if the player's not going back in and the injury is like more severe, then you just have to be which is very important, is talking to the player, letting her know this is what you have, this is what you did. So here, from now on, we're gonna do 1, 2, 3. The doctor maybe will prescribe something for you. I will do my physio stuff, and then from there, the SNC will continue with light rehab to see you going back into the field. So that's where the collab is very, very important right there. And then with the coaches and everyone else, remember, a coach wants to see their players in the field. That's all that is. So that's why you have to have everything planned. If you go back to the coach and be like, okay, this is the diagnosis, whatever happened with the player, and then this is what we're thinking. She's not going back in based on 1, 2, 3. So you have to do a replacement, or just give us a few days to continue with our treatment, and then you'll have the player in the next game or so. Because you know, with cricket, you can have like 2 or 3 days before the next game. So that's will be all that you do. So that's where even like your bowling coaches, if it's a bowler, then you just involve them like, you know what, just give me this time. Then from there, you be like, coach, assessment. Look if she's bowling well or not. So the coach will probably have more idea in the bowling side, like something's not right, or she's still bowling well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, Molebatsi. Just last question from me with you for this segment. I will have you back on the panel discussion. Mo, obviously, you were part of history this year, being a part of the first ever national physio to be in a World Cup final for South Africa. How was that experience for you? How special was that experience for you, number one? And number two, what advice would you have for a youngster out there who saw Molebatsi around on the field during the final and they want to do the job?
Yeah, literally, it was out of this world. I felt like I was a player too. Surely you saw how happy I was. I'm always happy though. But yeah, it was a grim time. You know, it's always nice when the dream pays off. The hard work that you've been putting along the way, and then you end up paying off. It's always like wonderful to witness such, especially knowing where we come from with the team. Ever since I've been here, or I found them here, and then we go continued. We always know, okay, this is the goal that we want. Set your goals, and then all those things. So it was very, very wonderful to watch and to witness it there live. So I was over the moon. I felt like I was the player as well, especially with all the supporters there and everywhere. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I feel like more important. And the hype that we got and everything afterwards, it was so amazing. So for someone coming in, right, especially like following to my footsteps, it has to be passion. Passion is what drives you. So if you're passionate enough, then you will get there. You'll achieve whatever you want. That's why they always say when the why is different, nothing can stop you.
Awesome stuff. I'll end it right there. Thank you so much, Molebatsi. Stay on the line, please. We'll have you back again later on. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thanks, Lita.
Thank you. And moving right along, another special guest. We've got a team psychologist, another individual who was involved in the Proteas women's successful World Cup appearance at home, Miss Kirsten van Heerden. Kirsten is not only a Proteas women psychologist, but she's got a huge track record within the business, but also she was an international player as well within her own right. So I'll let her talk about that a bit more. Kirsten, welcome.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be on this. It's always a pleasure to chat about this kind of thing.
Stuff. Thank you for availing yourself as well. I know you're a busy woman. Kirsten, let's start off. Please tell us a bit about yourself. Just shed some light in the career that you've had for so long within the business.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, I was a swimmer myself. So I really, through my swimming career, realized how much my mind, played in my performance. And I had a great coach, but he was a little bit old-fashioned, where he'd be like, just train hard, Kirsten, and you'll be fine. And I always knew that there was, a little bit more to it than that. So I really became interested in this mental side of sport, and how do we teach mental skills? And, so often we'll say to athletes, like, just believe in yourself, or, focus, or whatever it is. But, how do you go about doing that? And how do you make sure that the mental and physical preparation go hand in hand? So, yeah, so I've spent past 15, 18 years, I suppose, like working with athletes from different sports, different levels. Really say, how do you perform under pressure? But then one of my areas of interest as well is how do we make sure, especially for elite athletes, that when you retire and transition one day into kind of normal life, that you're okay as well. So in a nutshell, that's me.
And Kirsten, obviously you're speaking about transition right there. Obviously, as a swimmer, to become a psychologist, there's a journey there. I'm sure it was not a straightforward one as well. Just tell us a bit about that, and how did you go about, getting certified and the qualifications you had to undergo?
Yeah, so technically in South Africa, there's not a qualification as sports psychologist. So all of us that could call ourselves sports psychologists are generally either clinical psychologists or counseling psychologists. So the kind of academic pathway to becoming a psychologist is that you have to have your master's degree. So I'm a clinical psychologist, so I got my master's in clinical psychology. But I was really interested in sport. It's the same as people that call themselves a child psychologist, or something like it's a special area of interest. And so my research and my honors and my master's, and then also in my PhD, was all sort of in the area of sports psychology and performance. Then attended different workshops, try to find mentors in the field to kind of help me along the way. So yeah, that's kind of, although you have those academic qualifications to be a psychologist, it was really just trying to find my own path. Certainly when I started, the sports psychology was not as well known as it is today. People weren't as open to it as they were today. So a lot of free seminars and workshops and talks at schools, a lot of convincing coaches that you do actually need to have someone like myself on board. So yeah, I knew it was what I wanted to do. But once I got that academic qualification, then it was just finding through my networks, through swimming. I was lucky enough to know some people and to have some networks, and to really tap into those networks to see athletes and build a practice from there.
And obviously, you speak as an individual coming from an individual sport, as a swimmer. Obviously, you might have your relays here and there, but it's mostly you alone in that pool. In team sport, it's not the same. It's obviously vastly different. Obviously, you need to be at a optimum level in terms of your mental space, but you're dealing with different personalities as well as your teammates, coaches, etc. How do you start getting yourself into that mind frame? Okay, you're working in a team sport now, and how did you go about, when you first entered cricket as well and supporting the players?
Yeah, it's a great question, because cricket is an interesting one, so it's almost like an individual team sport in a sense, So yeah, so I really enjoy working a lot with cricketers. But you're right, it's very different to swimming where it's just me in the pool swimming. Having said that, even individual sports, you still have to work within a team. You have physiotherapists, doctors, managers, coaches. So, the dynamics are always there, and it's you just have to be a little bit more aware of it. You're right, working within the team. So there are different layers. So to being able to work with the individual, which I still love and is critical because everyone is so different. But then, yes, making sure that you have team sessions as well. And I think this is where the coach is really important, because if the coach buys into it and says to players, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, it's so much easier then as well to get, the athletes and the players to kind of buy into it too. So you have, group workshops, and, often it's things like developing, I know we throw out these words and they can kind of sometimes become a bit meaningless, but, developing the culture of the team. What is it's not even just the vision necessarily, but, almost like, what is the team philosophy? What do you stand for? Under pressure, what are those values that you kind of stand for and help guide you and make decisions? And, each individual player would have their own sort of guiding philosophy, but then it's also looking at overarching, what is the team guiding philosophy? Because I say those are really things that when the pressure's on, instead of cracks appearing, what kind of grounds us that we can make good decisions by, that's best for both the individual players and the team. So yeah, it's different. It's kind of different levels in team sports that you have to work with, which I quite enjoy as well. It's quite a challenge for me having come from an individual sport, but I enjoy that, being able to work with that, say the team as a whole, and then of course also the individual work.
Speaking about challenges, as you mentioned there, mental health, it's I would say in the last 10 years, it's become very prominent in the world. But it's something that everyone deals with in their own ways. And I go back to many, many decades ago, but it was hardly spoken about. And now when, let's say you meet a player for the first time and they come from a background where it's, stay silent, keep things in, and, they just focus on a daily basis. How do you go about, breaking down those players' walls, if I could put it that way, and really tapping into, they try and get them into an optimum level in terms of mental psyche?
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing is the relationship that you develop with players. And this has been a long-standing discussion in sports psychology circles in South Africa for many years, whether it is with cricket, whether it is with Olympic sports, just sending a psychologist to one event is great, or to the Olympic Games or whatever it is. But it's really building up that relationship over time, because you're right, under the most intense pressure, why would I speak to somebody I don't really know? You'd rather go chat, I don't know, with your boyfriend or girlfriend or mum or dad or something like that. So, people that you actually trust. So in part of being able to help players to trust, I suppose, and that under pressure, they know that they can trust you with what's going on in their head. It does take a time, and for all of us, it takes time to build up that kind of trusting relationship. So, that's one thing that I, when I say work on, it's great when you allow that opportunity over a number of years to get to know players and they get to know you. And then, I think more and more, you're right, nowadays, people are opening up a little bit more. And sometimes not even through the work that us as sports psychologists do, more just as athletes themselves speaking up and saying, hey, it's okay, as we say, not to be okay. Well, these are some of the struggles of being a professional player, a cricket player. Certainly, there might be a sports psychologist in the background encouraging them to speak out. But, I think it's almost far more valuable when player or an ex-player says, hey, these are some of the struggles and this is what you can do about it, or these are some of the pitfalls, be careful, than if I say it. But it's great to work together, because then once they've heard those messages, and then to say, okay, these are the places that I can go and access the help. And I think for me, that's a lot of the case as well. How do we just educate people that they know if they need it? These are the people that you can access, and these are the people that you can trust.
100%. And that's what we're trying to do with this webinar as well. It's to open up opportunities. They let people understand there's different various roles and different opportunities as well. Just a couple of last questions from myself, Kirsten. Obviously, similar to Molebatsi, you were part of history as well, as part of the team and making it all the way to the T20 final earlier this year. Firstly, how was that experience for you? And a lot of, me talking to media, a lot of them wanted to know, what is the difference this time around compared to all the other semifinals we've lost and all the other World Cups? And I know, talking to you, you don't want to take credit for that. Just the role that you played within the team, particularly for this World Cup, and also just any advice you give any individual young psychologist who is, looking to work particularly in cricket.
Yeah, look, it's exactly, I cannot claim that semi-final win. It was an incredible team effort, and it's always a privilege to be involved with the national team, and certainly with the ladies that, the women's team that are so, every team is, so passionate about what they're doing. And I think kind of really leading the way in terms of women's sport. It was, for myself personally, as a woman in sport, it was such a privilege to be a part of that. And, it was wonderful that the players allowed me to be part of that. CSA and SACA as well were instrumental in kind of helping. So yeah, I think it's always lovely to be part of history, isn't it? And I'm super competitive, so it's nice to, it's always lovely to win. But yeah, I think I said a large part of that is just making sure, and the work that I do in general is often as a sports psychologist, well, this is what I would hope anyway from the players, that you're a safe place, that they know that they can come and talk. A safe and a soft place. Elite level sport, it is a harsh world, it's pressure cooker environment. And I think you need these spaces that you can go to where you can just be yourself, or just let something out of your head, or just vent a little bit. And that I'm not going to tell anybody, it's confidential, it will just stay where it is. I think athletes need those spaces, particularly at a place like a World Cup. A lot of it might be ad hoc, it's maybe just a little bit of a word over breakfast, or, just on the bus talking. So it's not like a formal sit down hour session with a psychologist. Often the more useful work when you're on tour is just those ad hoc conversations. And I also like to believe that maybe also just by your presence there, players remember that there's this mental side, and maybe remember some of the things. So when they kind of see you standing there, they're like, okay, yeah, I remember, breathe, relax. And so, yeah, my encouragement to young psychologists is don't just want to work with the national team. And what I mean by that was advice that I got given. It's wonderful to be able to work with Olympic athletes, national team athletes. Don't be wrong. It really is. It's the pinnacle of sport. But I think to be a psychologist, a sports psychologist, you have to love people and wanting people to develop skills, and really, as kind of cliched as it sounds, be the best they can be. And sometimes, helping, the 14-year-old that is struggling and nervous for whatever they're doing, and then you can teach them skills and they get it and they can see it, that they're going to carry on with it. That is every bit as rewarding. And I just think and not always, but sometimes it's a bit of an ego involved, like, oh, I'm working with this national team, I'm working with this Olympic athlete. and it's not about you. It really is not about you. It's you're in the background supporting people to go there and to be their best. So if you want to be a good sports psychologist, be a good psychologist, love people, love working with people, care for people. And if you do that, then for sure, I'm not going to lie, it's wonderful to be, as I said, with national teams for sure. But that's not the reason necessarily that you want to get into sports psychology. The reason that you should get into sports psychology is because you enjoy sport. Is such a wonderful area in life. It's like a little microcosm of life to learn about success, failure, learn about yourself, learn how to deal with people, how to deal with, kind of different personalities. It is this wonderful opportunity. And so, and how do we help athletes do that? I say, whether they are cricket players, swimmers, rugby players, they're 14 years old or they're 34 years old, those are the skills that you're kind of wanting to help. So if you focus on that, I think you'll be successful.
Awesome stuff. I think that's a perfect way to end your segment. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
For the chat later as well. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. That was Ms. Kirsten van Heerden, team psychologist. She also has her own practice, but also serves as the Proteas woman psychologist as well. Next up, one of my favorite individuals within the game. I learn a lot every time this lady speaks. Can I please ask the SA 19 coach and SA Women's Academy coach, Ms. Dinesha Devnarain, to please unmute herself and show a video for our chat.
Hi, Lita. How are you doing? Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks.
Awesome stuff. Coachy, a lot of people might have seen you around in the last year or so. You've been very busy, obviously, heading up the inaugural South African campaign at the Under-19 World Cup earlier this year. But for those who perhaps don't know you, can you please just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, always a trick question. Thanks, Lita. Yeah, Dinesha Devnarain. I currently hold the position at Cricket South Africa for High Performance Women, which is SA Under-19 National Academy and SA Emerging. Yeah, I suppose those that don't know me it'll be very difficult because cricket has taken most of my life. Playing international cricket for numerous years, and now obviously in the coaching field. But I suppose what you see is what you get. With me, just a person that's all about development. Regardless of the level you reach, I think there's always a space for learning. And yeah, I think, part of my philosophy and the way I live my life is governed by, just being a better version of yourself each day. And how do we get there? Just by that 1% improvement. So my coaching philosophy is very much the same as my life philosophy, is that, at the end of the day, I just want to be a good human, do good unto others. And yeah, hopefully that shows in my coaching as well. But yeah, if I had to sum myself down in a nutshell, it would probably be the 1% mindset.
Coach, as well as now obviously being a coach, you also had a career playing for Proteas women, over 20 ODIs, over 20 T20s as well. How did your playing career turn into a coaching career? What made you pursue this ambitious goal of becoming a coach, a head coach?
Yeah, look, if I must be honest, it wasn't in my pathways as a youngster. I played the game, I love the game. And I tried the studying route. At the moment, I do have 2 degrees. So that's in financial accounting and human resource management. Where I decided to make the switch is when I started finding my purpose in life. And a big purpose of that is the passion of people, the development of people. And I could do that through cricket. Look, it was all good and well. Working in a bank, I did some vocational work in a bank, balancing books, working out protocols, policies, but it didn't fuel me as a person. I felt like there was more that I needed to do. And yeah, entirely that's how choosing the cricket coaching path had taken. But look, even while I played for the Proteas, it wasn't as professional as it is now. So, I could play for the Proteas and still have a coaching job where I did at KZN. And at one point I was player coach at one point. And that passion, but it was more than a passion for me. I call it a purpose, a gift. Like it grew and grew and it grew even stronger. And the more I got into the bank, the more unhappier I got. So for me, it was fulfilling that purpose, understanding myself as a human being, and best fit in that role, So yeah, I think after the level 3 coaching certificate, I had a long introspection discussion with myself actually, and a few important people in my life, and it boiled down to the coin toss. If the coin is in the air, what do you want it to fall on? And hence why I'm here, and I don't regret the decision at all.
Coach, you mentioned there as well, coaching badges. Obviously, it is more well known in terms of the journey you need to take to become a coach. Not necessarily maybe in South Africa, but everyone knows you need to do your coaching levels. You are actually a holder of a level 4 coaching certificate, and one of the only female coaches in the country with that. But it didn't just get to level 4. You had to start level 1, level 2, level 3. So you're in the bank, you're realizing that maybe this is not for you. Now, what were the actual steps that you took? Okay, I'm going to focus in cricket now. So how did you start that whole process? Who did you call? Who did you talk to? How did it all come about?
Yeah, actually, when it started, I actually did my level 1 and level 2 as a cricketer. I wanted to better my game as a cricketer. So that's how that started. And, there's a lot of things that you would assume if you're a cricketer that you would know. So that obviously definitely opened my knowledge a lot. And I'll share maybe a small story with you, is that, so obviously I was selected in the team as a opening bowler, as a pace bowler for South Africa. And as I did my level 1, level 2, I got back into the team as a batting all-rounder, and that's because I only understood batting differently. And I ended up bowling off spin towards the end of my career. So a lot of that had to do with the level coaching. So the level 1, level 2, even at level 3, like I felt like there was so much to the game. And that's what I loved about the game, because it's not just who gets the most runs or who gets out the quickest. It was more about, there's so much intricacies to the game that doesn't only just involve skill. And I think Kirsten mentioned the mental aspect of it. Then you got the tactical aspect. You've got an analysis, which is a big aspect to that. There's so much elements to the game, and that made me want to get my level 3. But at that point, when I went for my level 3 coaching certificate, I got offered KZN women's head coach. And I said, you know what? I'm not a big coach that is massive on credentials. At the end of the day, I say, whatever's on your CV is what you achieved from a knowledge point of view. For you to be a coach, it means absolutely nothing to what's on your CV, but it's important to know, because players and parents, you deal with a lot of parents, and people around are going to ask, what level coaching has this person have? So it was important for me to get that. And then, I was fortunate enough by Cricket South Africa to be nominated for the level 4. And that's the ultimate, that's the epitome of your coaching qualifications. But for me personally, it doesn't have to stop there. I think also as an individual, not everyone gets invited for level 3 and level 4, but I think it's so important for us to understand ourselves as human beings, understand what's the attributes, the skills that you need to be in a head coach role, or even in a coaching role, because you want to extract performance out of athletes, is that you got to do some self-reflection within yourself. And, every person has shortcomings and weaknesses or areas of improvement, let me say that. And until we have that conversation with ourselves, or even if we can have an accountability partner where we can speak about these things, we're never going to understand that what can I improve as a coach that's not on the level coaches. So whether it's short courses, whether it's something that you poor at soft skills, or you're poor at communicating the way you're thinking, I think it's really important that as a coach, you've got to have that lifelong learning mindset, and you've got to ask yourself the ugly questions, is that this is not an area of strength, but is there something that I can do, that I can upskill myself to make sure that, at the end of the day, that the kid I'm working with, or the adults that I'm working with, does have the best of me, and I'm giving my best.
100%. Coach, I know, you're an individual that loves to have one-on-ones and team discussions with your players. And it's something that, you want them to also take accountability. As you said, accountability partner is very important. Now, when you start working with a youngster, they're walking into your camp or your team for the first time, what are the processes that you go through to firstly make them understand how you work, but also for you to get the best out of them?
Yeah, I suppose the first thing, especially working with the younger age group, is you got to see a smile on the head coach's face, that it's an okay environment. The last thing you want to do is limit that authentic player that came into that environment. So a typical, I'll use the SA Under-19 processes that we use, is that, we, at our first camp, we had 60 odd players. And we got them into this auditorium and they all just sat there. And the first thing was to just make a joke, how blessed and pleasant are we to actually just enjoy this? I mean, we're all talking about the World Cup, but, at the end of the day, you were the end product that made it to the 63, and yes, it's part of life. It's part of professional sport that people will fall away from the program, but don't let anyone take this space away from you. And then when it comes to me as a coach, especially that first meeting, it's not so much about me. I just want to promote a safe environment where players can be themselves. And as soon as we get closer to the final squad, because now we're gonna get into performance sessions, we're gonna go into KPI sessions, benchmarking, whatever it may be. I had to share them my philosophy. So when we got to 24, that philosophy came out, and I had already have information about the group. So by then I would already know is that that's something I'm going to have to take out or remove out for the betterment of the team. And I think that's so important to do. I don't think it's this is how you got to be all the time. You've got to actually be very relevant to the group of girls or boys that you're working with. And, then you share that side of it. And then a different element, and they level up to the next level because they feel like they know the coach and they know what the coach is looking for. So that's really important. And then the one-on-ones usually start after that, once we start getting into the string of things. But for me, my most important conversations are the one that's informal. And it's just about how are you, how are you doing as a person? I don't want to know, I don't want to know if you scored 100 on Meditac. That means nothing. I just want to know how are you doing, And from that day, it stems into family life. This is what I go through. That's what I go through. And for me, that's the important conversations I like. And then the good thing about that is that once you start having difficult conversations, like performance related, or why you're sitting out of teams, because you've established a relationship with the player and you've created that honest environment, those conversations, it's never easy, but they become more bearable. And I think it's such an important trait for a coach to have when dealing with young players. But at the end of the day, we must remind ourselves things. We need to remind where we come from. So how's the cricket down at that level? Yes, we want to step up because they come into high performance, but you never ever stop the enjoyment factor. You don't want to kill careers at that age. So a lot in the enjoyment factor, and while they keep learning, is really important here at the SA Under-19 level.
100%. Coachy, thank you so much. As always, love talking to you. Just last one from me, Coach. As a head coach, you are basically the leader of the team. You're the leader of the squad. You're the leader of the camp. And leadership, is various ways to be a leader. Just a two-part question here. What are one of the most important characteristics for you in leadership? And then also, how do you approach the whole concept of giving advice? Because, as a coach talking to a youngster, you give advice, but then you don't want to also basically instruct the individual to do X, Y, Z, but you also want them to have, their own level of critical thinking and decide for themselves, taking in your input. So how do you go about giving advice as a leader, but also starting off, what is important to you to be a leader?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Lita, and I love the question. Look, there's many attributes and many skill characteristics that coaches need to fulfill a role. For me personally is empathy, and every time I use this word in a high performance space, people's eyes light up and they're like, "Baby, but you don't perform, you're gonna get fired," But at the end of the day, it boils down to this for me. If I don't understand my player, if I can't relate to them, how will I expect performance out of it? How when the things start getting tough? I'm a coach that only wants to listen but not understand. And that's a massive difference. So yes, there's other attributes and key attributes. I mean, leadership can be in very different forms. But, continuous learning is a big one. Patience is a big one. Sometimes as coaches, especially, we want results quickly, but it's process driven. It is process driven. I think it's important you have to have a goal-orientated mind. You have to understand what are we doing right now today that's adding to what. And we've got to think like that. We've got to think strategically, analytically, we've got to have a vision. But yeah, I think that the main thing for me, if I had to boil down to one skill, and if I had a top 5, the top of my list would probably be know my athlete, value and respect the relationship that we both share. And yeah, you cannot fake passion. You cannot fake being able to care for a player. So if you do it, make sure you do it authentically. That's what's really important for me.
100%. Thank you so much, Coachy. That's it for you in the one-on-ones. I will have you back in the panel discussion. Thank you so much once again. Thanks, Coachy. Moving right along, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a part where some of us are very excited about in terms of talking to the players. We'll move on to that section now. First up, I'd like to please invite Miss Yolani Fourie. She is recently retired, so I just want to find out also how that life is going. Yolani, can you please ask you to just unmute, please, and also show your video?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, loud and clear. Yolani, as I said, recently retired as of April, I think, so not too long ago. Firstly, before we get into you and your career, firstly, how's retirement life?
I haven't felt it yet. I feel like I'm more busy than what I was playing cricket.
No, off the field is a bit different. Yolani, sorry. You played for the Lions for many years, and also you played for the Proteas as well. She just left us. One of the only individuals to have played Test cricket as well for South Africa. Not many, especially in the last generation, not many cricketers can say that. Yolani, just tell us a bit about yourself and your cricketing career, and how special was it for you to play cricket for so many years?
Yeah, apologies for that. My dog's going crazy in the background. Well, I think for every girl out there, probably not now anymore, but for me, it started with in the backyard with my brother. We started playing there, and I ended up going to a high school that specifically had girls cricket, and I ended up playing for Boland under 16, under 19, made my way to Western Province, and then eventually made my way up to SA as well. So yeah, that's probably one of the best experiences of my life.
Awesome. And as you say, you obviously went to certain schools that allowed you to follow your dream. But how did it all start for you in terms of the game? You know, when did you first develop the love and passion for it? And when did you realize that, hey, this is something I can make a living out of?
I think, like I mentioned, growing up with a bigger brother and playing backyard cricket with him, I always enjoyed it and enjoyed watching it. And one of my favorite players still is John T. Rhodes and diving around on the field. That's probably why I ended up diving around that point as well. So yeah, I think mainly it's that, and then also parents that supported me all the way.
100%. And what do you think are some of the key skills as a cricketer that you need to make it at the highest level? As I said, you've tasted Protea colours. So what would you say an individual needs, soft and hard skills, to make it as a cricketer?
I think the main thing is, like they say, cricket is 80% mental and 20% skill. So if you put your mind over matter, then anything is possible. But I was thinking about that question, and in the end, everyone is unique and everyone's got their own specific skills. So the big thing is not to focus or worry about anyone else and what they're doing, but more about yourself and making sure you're doing what you can to be the best out there. And when I started playing cricket, one of my goals was to be one of the best off spinners, not just in the country, but in the world. And I feel like maybe I didn't get quite such an opportunity to play for a long time at national level. But I feel like when I retired now at the end of April, that I ended up being probably the best off spinner in the country. So I think key is to set out your goals and make sure you work hard to achieve those goals. And like I mentioned, you end up having different skills than everyone else. Yes, there can be 20 off spinners, but everyone is unique. So what is making you unique, and what are you doing to make sure that stands out from everyone else? I think that's probably the most important thing that you can work on.
100%. And you mentioned the opportunity to play and opportunity to follow your dreams. Obviously, in the last 50 odd years, women's cricket has been growing tremendously, especially in the last decade or so. And also, you know, as the game is growing, more and more schools are bringing women's cricket or girls cricket within the sporting codes. But how important, obviously, and you know, most of the players in your generation played with boys growing up, playing, you know, obviously mini cricket, but then in high school you end up having to play with boys because there's no teams. Firstly, how is that experience, and how that experience helped you, you know, become the cricketer you are now? But also, what are the benefits? What do you think the benefits would be for, you know, more schools to introduce girls cricket, and how would that help the game?
I think for me, growing up, like I mentioned, I specifically went to a school that had girls cricket, and there wasn't a lot of schools that had girls cricket. And if you look at it now, almost every second school, maybe not primary school, but at least every second high school's got a girls team, especially in Gauteng. And I'm working at a school whose girls cricket is very strong. We've got a very good program for our girls cricket. And to see that they end up playing across Gauteng against other schools with girls cricket is amazing to see, comparing to where I started in the Western Cape with, let's say, 5 schools that had girls teams. Now you have every second school. So that's definitely a huge improvement. And I think it shows in our base of girls cricket as well. And I mean, Gauteng alone is walking away with 2 under 13 provincial teams, 3 under 16 provincial teams, and then our under 19 team. So we've got in Gauteng, we've got a very, very good base. And obviously I don't know as much in the other provinces, but I'm sure it's growing there as well. And it's, like I said, it's extremely good to see.
And obviously now, you, as you said, you're working in a school, so you're interacting with a lot of youngsters and people who, you know, look up to you and look up to your, you know, your former teammates and also want to, you know, become a Protea. How would you, you know, if a youngster comes to you now and says, you know, Coachy, I want to become a cricketer one day, how would you help them start firstly, and also help them, you know, go along the right channels also to be able to reach that high level?
I think the most important thing is at the level that we coach at school, especially the prep school, is to firstly give them the love for the game, so that one day when they're old, they never lose that love for the game. They'll still sit on the couch and watch test match cricket and things like that. And, you know, if you can have them playing cricket at break time and every opportunity they get to play cricket, you know that cricket bug has bit them. And from there, then you can start working on their skills and stuff, and grow them slowly into their specific role they want to end up doing in the end. And yeah, so like I said, most important thing, especially prep side, is to give them the love for the game and make sure that they never leave the game.
100%. And as a young coach yourself, are there any ambitions to perhaps, you know, also transition into semi-professional, professional coach one day and hopefully coach at the highest level? And how would you even, you know, begin that journey as well, if it is something that you'd like to do?
I think definitely I am actually busy with my level 3. So hopefully by September, I'm a qualified level 3 coach as well. So I think I actually recently, when I did a few things with my level 3, that, you know, that little bulb that goes on with the playing, oh, this is really something I want to do. It happened with the coaching as well. And just to see the smile on the kids' faces when they get something right. And it's the same like teaching as well. And to know that you can make a difference in someone's life and improve their skills, and then they go home and tell their parents what they learned. That's something different than just playing cricket and being used to be that person running home and telling your parents what you achieved. So now to experience it from a coaching point of view is amazing. And yeah, I think from here, I think I'm just going to take it a little bit slow, see what comes up. But yeah, I think I'm definitely going for the top. I like setting out goals for myself. So I think to become one of the best female coaches alongside Dee will be amazing. And just travel the world coaching different countries maybe, or having that experience to coach in different countries will be amazing.
Yeah. And now let's try and go back, perhaps, you know, when you were 10 years old, you know, as you said, you fell in love with the game at a young age and you were fortunate enough to go to schools that allowed you to play. What are some of the things now as coach, Yolani? What are some of the things that you wish you would have paid attention to a bit more within your development in cricket as a player that you think would have played a huge role now in your success as a coach? And what would you say to that youngster now who is a player but also one day wants to be a coach? What advice would you give them now to be like, hey, focus on 1, 2, 3 so that will help you in 10 years' time?
I think the most important thing is never to give up on something that you're learning. I always tell the kids when I teach them something new is it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a process. In the beginning, it's going to look horrible and things like that. But once it clicks, it's going to be beautiful. And I think like Dee mentioned as well, from going from or while you're playing and doing your different coaching levels, it actually makes you think not just from a playing point of view, but from a coach's point of view. And it allows you to start coaching yourself as well. And I think from that, just learning, the biggest thing for me is to be patient. And especially when you're learning new skills. And like they say, it takes 10,000 reps or 10,000 hours to perfect something. And it doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, big thing I can teach the kids nowadays that I learned for myself is be patient and just keep pushing forward.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Yolani. Please hang around for the panel discussion, but thank you so much for your valued time. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Moving on to our next discipline or career path, I would like to focus on the scorer. This is a very some would say underrated, but very important role within cricket. A lot of people from the media, from the coaches, from the players themselves rely on these individuals to do their job at the best of their ability, and also help provide the information that the players would need to improve and also keep track of their progress. Next up is a lovely individual by the name of Nthabiseng Ledwaba. She's currently the Northern Cricket Union Scorers Association President. Nthabiseng, can I please ask you to join us online and please switch on your camera?
Good evening, Rita.
Hi, Nthabiseng. Hi, thank you for joining us. Before we get started, Nthabiseng, I would like to please also just remind everyone this is an interactive webinar, so as many questions as you would like, and we'll get our panelists to just answer them during the panel discussion. Thank you so much for your patience, Nthabiseng. I know you were quite nervous about coming on today, but I think a lot of people will benefit, in hearing your story, and also just, learning the challenges and things that you've overcome to be where you are right now. Let's go back a bit, and Tabi, you've got a nice story. I would like to think you've played the game, and then you've gone up, all the way to becoming a president of the Scorers Association. Let's just start off. Tell us a bit about yourself, and Nthabiseng, and how you got into this world of cricket.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Rita, thank you so much. How it started? I started playing cricket when I was 9 years old in primary school. Then I stopped, and then when I was a teenager, I played for my Mamelodi Cricket Club. Then after that, that's when I joined the scoring. For me to join scoring, my coach, she was the one who said it's interesting. So I was interested actually to join because I have passion for cricket. So from there onwards, I was appointed as the vice chair 2018. Then 2020 till date, the president, and yeah, I work for Tax Wicket, University of Pretoria.
Scoring is a taxing job. You spend a lot of hours out in the field. Sometimes on weekends, you say goodbye to your weekends, but you've done it for so long. Can you just tell us where does the passion come from in terms of your becoming a scorer? Obviously, you played the game and you've been involved throughout your youth, but now as an adult, you're still involved and you love it. So where does this passion for scoring come from?
So like you said, I used to play cricket, and once I was introduced from scoring, it was I loved it. It was a bit challenging at first because then you need to do your trainings and learn things that you were not aware of, because for us playing cricket, you just want to check how many runs you made and that's it. But then Then the minute you start scoring, then you become more curious. You want to know more. You want to learn more from scoring. So that's where I got my passion, and the knowledge of cricket also helped a lot. That you want to know more. You want to score. You want to see what's happening, and you want to score even upper levels, top levels, top matches. So that's where I got the motivation as well.
Awesome. You mentioned there about the training. Can you just take us through the various steps one would need to firstly get involved and be, certified as a scorer at perhaps Northern's cricket? But also, how do you, as you said, advance up the stages and, go from scoring an under-13 provincial game to all the way scoring a test match featuring South Africa?
So with scoring's got levels. You firstly need to understand cricket. You need to have the knowledge of cricket before you can say you want to score. And then with scoring, it's different levels. We start with our level D, and then we've got level C, and we've got level B. So with level D is the beginning. That's where they teach you how to score, like how to put your dot, how to put your fours and your sixes and all that. And then once you pass that stage, or once you pass that course, you get a certificate that you are qualified to score for level D. And then as time goes, then you score for levels. You in a way, when you feel that you're ready, you move to level C. Your level C, you still need to do training for level C, because there's other rules for level C. For level C, you also need to know your fielding. You need to have more knowledge for cricket. And then you've got your level B. Unfortunately, we don't have level A, but then with level B, you get the opportunity to score international matches and to also know other scoring positions in the box. So once you're in the level B, that means you know your story. You can even do training. So yeah.
Just you touched on it right there in terms of scoring positions. Just give us a bit of behind the scene insight on what positions exist in terms of scoring, because one would think, there's maybe one or two people, but I've walked in those rooms and there's 4 or 5 of you guys.
So actually with scoring, it's 7 scorers, so 5 in the box and 2 outside. So 2 is press 1 and 2, they score manually. And then in the box, you've got your manual 1 and manual 2. You've got your computer scorer, whoever, when you see the score on the box, on the board at the stadium, it's your computer scorer. And then your production is the one who puts lights when there's milestones and all that. And then you've got your field spotter. Your field spotter tells you everything that happens in the game. So if a field spotter gives you wrong information, that means even the board will have wrong information.
So even in the scorer's box, it's teamwork overall.
Yes, it's teamwork. Yeah, you don't work individually, it's teamwork.
100%. And you mentioned it's about experience and knowledge. Obviously, that is gained over time, but you don't achieve all of this alone. You have individuals that will help you as well. So how important is mentorship within scoring, having people that will assist you and guide you, but also people for you to look up to and aspire to?
Okay, in terms of with me, at least I had so many people who were mentoring me, because at some stage I wanted to give up because I felt like it was too much. And the fact that you don't spend time with your family over the weekends, you have to score and all that. I had people who groomed me, especially when I started with my level D. I was a little bit slow to do the course, but then somebody was like pushing me that no, you need to do your level C, you need to learn your cricket even more. And then that's how it went about. So I also pushed myself. I also wanted to learn more. Whenever cricket is playing on TV, I would score the match just to check my mistake, and where I had mistakes, then I'll go back to somebody, the person who was mentoring. I said, this is my situation, where did I go wrong? So it's very important to mentor, especially scorers out there. Not actually scorers, but then people out there who wants to join scoring. Some, they don't even know what's scoring, but they've got the love of cricket. They see that there's scores on TV, but they don't know who's putting the score. They go to the stadiums, they see that the scores on the board, but they don't know who's there and where's the box. So it's very important for us scorers to invite more, to mentor youngsters out there. I think with my association now, we've got scorers that are 40 years older. So with youngsters, we could deal with youngsters, and then we can teach them, we can mentor them from there. So we're trying by all means to train all the youngsters from hubs everywhere so that we can push the game.
Awesome stuff. Just on that note, lastly, Nthabiseng, what message would you give these youngsters that are wanting to join the association and want to become scorers? What's that one message that you tell all of them as they come to you as the mentor?
Okay, scoring is fun. It's very interesting. At first, when you start, it's a bit challenging, but it's really fun. It's enjoyable. You need to have the passion. I understand that we do get paid for scoring, but don't go for the money, go for the passion of cricket. If you love cricket, then you enjoy your scoring, you love your scoring, and yeah.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Nthabiseng. See, it was not that bad. Thank you so much.
Yes, it was not. Thank you.
Thank you. That is Nthabiseng Ledwaba, as I said, the scorer, and also the president of the Northern Scorers Association in Pretoria. Moving on, we're just going to go back to players. I quite enjoyed talking to Yolani, so I'm going to go to another player now. This individual has represented South Africa in numerous amount of ODIs and T20s. He also played for the Lions, the Titans as well, where he is currently, and he also had a great start to the inaugural SA20 season as well before, unfortunately, suffering a suspension with a bowling action. We'll talk all about that. Can I please invite Mr. Aaron Phangiso to please join me online and also just unmute and switch on his camera, please. Thank you. How's it, Putit?
How's it, Njani?
All good, all good. So thank you so much. I know you're a busy man. I took you away from your academy a bit after practice. So appreciate you for joining us. Brian, can you please just start off? I'm sure many fans have seen you on TV. Many colleagues of mine here have seen you on TV. And I'm not sure how many of them have met you in person, but can you just tell us a bit about yourself and who is Aaron Phangiso?
Yo, that's a tough question. Aaron Phangiso is Aaron Phangiso. Yeah, I was born in Garamkua, grew up in Sosh, played for Sosh, Sosh Cricket Club. And yeah, started my cricket here at Northerns, before I moved over to the Lions. Played most of my cricket that side, that's when I made the SA side. And yeah, I'm planning on finishing my career this side where it all started. That's Aaron in a nutshell. Father of two, and a husband.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Brian. And I was saying now, I mean, people might think you towards the end of your career, but you were picking up 4 firsts in the SA20 like nobody's business. So you might have a year or two left in you. Puti, just let's start off, I think, as a player, an experienced player now with, over 10 years of experience in the game at the highest level, you are giving back, and which is, exciting as an individual, also exciting as a fan to see players who made it. They didn't make it on their own, but they made it, and now you're trying to give back. Can you please just talk about your boys, as you mentioned them, the youngsters that you coach on a weekly basis, and just how that all came about, and how that came about in your mind as well, that you want to give back?
Yeah, look, I'm just coaching a couple of boys, basically a squad of 15 and 2 girls. It's boys from the townships, Sosh, Mams, Attridgeville, Laudium, Hamaskral, all of the boys. Obviously I sat down with an idea, and I just pitched something to a couple of guys that were willing to sort of come to the party and give back. These are the guys that have sort of been through the system. These are the coaches I'm talking about. Chico Ponella, he's currently running cricket at St. Albans. I'm talking about Patrick Nkuna. I'm talking about Abraham Ndlovu. He was part of the SAA touring Sri Lanka now. So speaking to the guys, and we said, look, we've had that opportunity to go to sort of what you call your nicer schools, and these boys don't have those opportunities, and especially now off season. So like these boys don't play cricket. How do we bridge the gap for these boys? How do we teach them what we know? As you said, I was fortunate enough to have represented my country, so I've learned one or two things, on and off the field, mentally, how to be strong and challenge the world, and I know with the coaches that I have, they've also went through their own personal challenges and the challenges of the game. So these are the boys that we're coaching. We're trying to bridge the gap. We're trying to give them the opportunities to be coached by sort of established coaches. Most of the coaches have level 3. Chico's got level 3. I've got personal experience through the game. Abram, like I said, he's working with SAA. So yeah, working with these boys it's a ball. It's talented young boys that don't get the opportunity to sort of, they can't afford like anyone else, the other players around the country, to be honest, around Pretoria, your Affie's boys, your Menlo Park, all of these boys, they can afford to pay your Aaron Phangiso's sort of skills to coach them for an hour. Some of them actually even pay more than 500 rands to coach private coaching for an hour. And unfortunately, these kids don't have that. They can't have that. So we just thought, you know what, let's just give back and give these boys an opportunity to be coached by guys that have been there, and they're doing very well. We played our first game on Saturday. We won, we're playing one of the academies here in Pretoria. So yeah, it's work in progress, but we're gonna get there.
100%. And Brian, as you mentioned, you played for quite a long time. You've experienced everything you would have to experience as a cricketer. But you mentioned there, the youngsters that you're coaching now have faced challenges, and I'm sure as yourself as well, growing up, becoming the established player you are now, you've experienced problems. How do you go about guiding them just in terms of overcoming these problems? They always say you fail more than you succeed in sport, and it's not a straight road. So how did you overcome those challenges, and how do you give back to these youngsters and tell them, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, it can help you in the future in terms of challenges?
Yeah, no, look, my challenges, they're always going to be there. I think you can never overcome challenges until you face stuff head on. You know what I mean? I was lucky enough to have faced a couple of those things. We're talking challenges of being probably at one stage, I was one Black African player in the Proteas setup. You know what I mean? Those kind of challenges are real, and these boys, obviously, they face those kind of things because they go to Coke weeks or whatever weeks. They're probably one or two African players. You know what I mean? And to get through that, all I say to these boys is, look, you always have a blanket. You always have people that you can go back to whenever you're feeling under pressure. Because, look, as Aaron Phangiso, if I'm traveling and I'm in Australia and I'm not getting game time, go World Cup or whatever, you know what? There's no one else in the team to talk to. But, there are people, there's a phone call away. So that's why we want to come into these kids' lives, because like myself, I didn't have that person that I could phone and say, look, these are the kind of emotions I'm going through. This is what's happening. And so these boys, we want to be there for these boys to say, look, never ever feel alone. There are people that actually care for you. There are your old boys, your Soshanguve old boys, your Atteridgeville old boys, because believe you me, the old boys actually play a big role into these kids' lives. It's just that now, but sometimes they face their own challenges where they cannot be upfront and say, look, I'm willing to buy you cricket equipment. I'm willing to do this for you. I'm willing to do that, because as you know, we all have different challenges financially and all of that. But you know what? All we do, we bring in people to speak to these kids, your mental coaches, your financial people to talk to these kids, to teach them how to deal with finances, with money and all of that stuff. So this program that we're running for this 4 months, it's all to do with those kind of things. As I said, challenges are always going to be there. And unfortunately, they're going to have to face them so that they can come back also at the later stage and say, look, you can learn from this. This is how I went about it. This is what I did. But until you get into that sort of situation, you can't really sort of advise. And like I say, with the guys that are working in this program, we've all went through that, so it's just about obviously perseverance, Baba. It's about waking up and knowing, Uguti, you're talented, knowing Ugutini, you as talented as the guy coming out of Afis or out of Boys High, you know what I mean? The only probably thing that they have on you that's a little bit of a plus, it's just that extra opportunity that they have. And you know what? You work hard, whether you come from SOSH, whether you come from mums or wherever, what you put in is what you get out. So that's what we just trying to get to these boys, you know?
100%. Thank you so much, Aaron, just dropping some knowledge there, Puti. Just lastly, you know, obviously you're dealing with youngsters from different backgrounds, from similar backgrounds in a way in terms of challenges, but different backgrounds, different homes, different cultures as well. Now, if a parent wants to help introduce their kid, their child, boy or girl, into cricket, but they're worried about school and balancing the two, which is very important as well, because not everyone's going to become an Aaron Phangiso or become a professional player. You need to have that balance. How do you go about, you know, putting your arm around these youngsters and ensuring that they don't lose sight of school, which is very important, and balancing it out?
Yeah, it's different. You know, as a parent, you have to worry. You have to look at a whole lot of things that are happening in the country. You have to look at where sports is and what kind of opportunities it offers. You know, I mean, I know when I got a scholarship to go to CBC, my dad was almost against it because there was a time where it was education first and then sports, you know. But I would like to think, I tell my kids, I'm like, look, education is important. You know, you gotta graft hard, you know, but your sport is also as important. You gotta look at the kids' talent. We're not living in a stone age now where we wanna force Umtwana to become a doctor, but we can see he's a Quentin de Kock, or we can see he's a Aaron Phangiso. You know what I mean? We got them in the right way. We get them to obviously participate at school. Academics are very important, you know, but also I'm gonna say to obviously, you know, abantu abamnyama, black parents, you know, that mentality of trying to hold a kid back and say, no, I want you, and the homework for 5 hours, you know, that kind of stuff. We need to be supporting the other way. You know, if a kid says, look, especially, I'm gonna say, especially to black parents, because we don't come out to games, we don't come out to the fields to support our kids, because we rather have them sit at home and study than actually show up for 30 minutes go grounding. And that 30 minutes for that kid means a lot, you know. So as parents, as sort of Africans, let's actually everyone, not only Africans, everyone, let's support a kid's dream, you know, and obviously make sure, again, like I say, make sure they get good education. You know, there's a bit of a balance, but you know, Abu Serena Williams didn't become Abu Serena Williams by just studying. You know, the father was hard, the father was tough with the academics, but also supported their sort of sporting talent and dreams.
Thank you so much. I think we'll end it there, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I'm sure a lot of people have learned a thing or two from our conversation. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Then moving right along, I see we have been speaking a lot and we've run out a bit of time, but I would like to move on to our next part where we've got two special guests. These are players who have undertaken a unique journey to get to where they are. And I say player because both of them have played the game, but one is now a strength and conditioning coach and the other one is obviously an international cricketer for the Proteas women. So I would like to please call up Sinalo Jafta as well as Tumi Masekela to please join us on Zoom. Tumi, Sinalo, are you guys there?
Yes, good evening, Belita.
Good evening, good evening.
Evening. Just want to add both of you guys here. Greetings, guys. The reason why first I paired you guys together, as I said, you have taken unique journeys to where you are. You know, in Sinalo's with Sinalo, she was a hockey player. With at under 21, under 23 level, and then became a national player as well in another sport, in cricket. And then Tumi, I remember what you said in a meeting once, that you were a player who was not necessarily into the whole fitness thing, and it's something that you knew you had to do, and you just did it as a responsibility, but it wasn't a passion at that time. But now you've ended up as a strength and conditioning coach for leading teams in the country, as well as obviously the Proteas men as well recently. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Sinalo, let's start off with you. Welcome, and please just give us a bit about yourself and who is Sinalo Jafta.
Firstly, good evening, everyone. Lita, thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Sinalo Jafta. I'm actually from a very small town in the Eastern Cape, Butterworth, Nthabiseng. Literally, you won't miss it if you're on your way from East London to Mthatha. And yeah, like my mom made the sacrifice of putting me into hostel from the age of 6 all the way to matric. And that's where actually my love for sports came in. And basically, yeah, I'm close to being a 30-year-old, which is scary, but yeah, that's just me.
Awesome stuff. To me, as the guy from the north who ended up playing a lot of his cricket in Bloemfontein and now lives in Pretoria as well, or works in Pretoria most of the time. Just tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into the game of cricket and how you ended up as a strength and conditioning coach.
Yes, okay, well, my name is Tumi, and I'm from all the way from up north, as you say, Limpopo, in Polokwane. So I started playing my cricket at, I would say, best high school cricket, playing high school in the country, Capricorn High School. That's where I started playing my cricket, but also starting at Seshego Cricket Club. That's where I developed all my skills and pushed by a coach. Hello, sorry, is everything okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, you can go on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I was saying, yeah, at Seshego, I started Seshego Cricket Club, where we were bred tough and hard. We weren't allowed to go home until we took all our catches, which was one thing that nearly made me quit. But yeah, that's where it all started. Then ended up playing for the Limpopo Impala's team. And from there, I got seen by the Tuks playing coach from one of the games. Then I got a bursary at Tuks, played my cricket here at Tuks, then played for Northerns. Actually, Aaron was my captain back then. Played under him, had lots of success under him, learned a lot from him. And yeah, then went on to play for the Knights, as you say. And because of the bursary, I studied sports science. When I got into sports science, I wasn't really sure where it was going, but yeah, as I learned more, got to enjoy the science of it, enjoyed the physiology part. My dad was always pushing me to study, and yeah, I just started enjoying it. Then also made it to, actually, I'm at the academy now. I was in 2008, I think, or 2009. I was part of the academy intake where I met Greg King, and that's where I got inspired to start with my training journey. He was a trainer the first trainer that actually spoke to me in a language that I understood, because as a player, trainers will tell you, yeah, do this, do that, and you just do what they say, not really sure or know or understand. So he got me to understand why we should train, how to train, and yeah, that's when he motivated me to say, okay, I want to be a trainer like that. And yeah, so that's where it started. He pushed me. He's my mentor. Yeah, he just pushed me. He's like, yeah, no, start training people. He got me into training the academy team the very next year, as I was still a player. And yeah, so I started training teams as a player, like a player trainer. Started even doing that at Northerns and so on. So yeah, that's how my journey started. And yeah, in 2016, eventually I retired, and then yeah, became a full-time trainer. And here I am today.
we've got player coaches and player trainers in the line here. So that's Sinalo, as I said, unique journey, multi-sport talented individual. And I know a lot of people will have experienced this in terms of what do you choose? What is going to be the sport and the career that takes you all the way? Please just tell us a bit about how that decision came about for you. I know you were playing hockey at a high level and then you chose cricket. How did that decision come about, and where did the passion for cricket, surpass the passion for hockey?
For me, from a very young age, I think I always knew that sport was a ticket out of the environment I grew in. Being raised by a single mother, you always have to take it into account that she wants to do it, but it's not possible, especially from a financial implication. And I remember when I went to high school, I actually made sure, just like Yolani, to choose a high school that had girls cricket because I was very interested in it. I hadn't played it by the time I got to grade 8, but I was really interested. And then hockey was always there from grade 2 all the way up. And, going into high school, and then I actually made the SA schools when I was 15 years old for hockey. So it was always kind of like, okay, this is the direction I'm going to go towards. And, the coaches I had were really helpful towards my mother because, hockey is not like the cheapest sport around. Like you kind of have to pay for everything that you do. And, I remember in matric, I knew the only way to go to university was if I got a full bursary. And, the offers did come from Tuks, Marty's, but I ended up choosing Poch because I think at the time they were the best women's program. And obviously I was like, I want to play amongst the best. And, Sudette Damon was my idol for growing up in hockey. And, cricket was literally just okay, cool, I'm playing it, but I don't want to have anything to do with it. And then funny enough, in my matric year, Volvo, who's the manager of the men's, was actually the coach, and he picked me for the SA under 19 in my matric year. And I was like, now what am I going to do? Because I already committed to Poch to book it to say I'm going to go. And, my mom was very happy. My mom was like, play cricket for fun, but you do know that you have to go to university and they're actually going to support you. And, through that, I played SA under 21. I played for the SA women's squad for hockey. And then I got the call for cricket, but I still wasn't interested. I was like, maybe, because I when you kind of have your foot in one area, but you're not kind of sure. I was like, okay, cool. Then my first tour, Dinesha was also there. So just being in the team environment and actually saying, listen, this is actually a professional sport, because kind of with hockey, you pay for everything. So I was like, I don't feel like working a 9 to 5. So let me just give cricket a shot. And, till this day, since 2016, I look back and I'm like, I actually made the right decision.
100%. I completely agree with you on that one. And cricket is lucky to have you. Going back to you, Tumi, obviously the two careers overlapped for a bit, as you mentioned now. You played while obviously being introduced to being a trainer. How do you feel, your skills transferred from, obviously your knowledge of the game is there because you played it for years, but now as a trainer, you need to know the different side of the game and also, be able to hold players accountable and deal with players, deal with, the different environment from playing now as a trainer. How was that transition for you, and what are some of the key lessons that you learned about yourself in transition?
Sure. In terms of the transition, I'd say the biggest thing is as a player, you're only looking out for number one. You're thinking about my performances, my training. Am I going to get selected? I want to get selected. You're only thinking about yourself, and you just rock up. You rock up to training. Somebody tells you what to do. They tell you how your day is going to run and everything. So then when I transitioned into a trainer, now you've got 18 players that you got to think about and care for, and start asking questions and building relationships with them as to, how does their day look? How do you help them to get in a good space to perform? And also planning their days as to each individual. Where are they? How do you, what do they need to do for the day? And so on, so that they're ready to play. So that was, I think, the biggest transition for me, and the biggest challenge was making that switch to be just me, and to say, okay, how do I look after them?
100%, 100%. Sinalo, obviously from your side, hockey player, but not a goalkeeper, and then becoming a wicket-keeper. So it's quite a transition. I know you're quite fast as an individual, so you're definitely not a goalkeeper, but then you became an individual that just stands behind the stumps, who tries to, or actually likes to run to the boundary a lot, but you stand predominantly behind the stumps. How was that transfer of skills, you know, from playing hockey from grade 2 all the way to matric, and now, you know, taking up cricket and exceeding in it, you know?
You know, growing up, I always thought like I'd be like a fast bowler. I remember my earliest memory would be like school holidays, December, Boxer Day test match, clearly no Makulu, you know, and SABC 3. And I remember my Karatini running in. I was like, that's what I want to do. So I think that kind of like convinced me to looking for a school that had girls cricket. And I remember the first coach that actually gave me the wicket-keeping gloves was Angelique Tai. I think she's here. We kind of had an argument about that, like, because in my mind, I was convinced I will be that bowler. But I mean, like, she knew better. As a player, we kind of like refused to listen until you actually give us proof. But, you know, as soon as I got the gloves, it took some time. It took a lot of training, a lot of hours, and I wasn't perfect. I'm still not, but that's the beauty of it. You keep on growing each and every single time, and you keep learning. And I'm kind of learning now on the job. And, you know, I'm blessed to have people like Angelique Tai, you know, to actually believe in me when I don't. So, you know, having the gloves for me is like something that I'm very proud of. And I'm absolutely grateful for that.
100%. And as an international cricketer, I mean, you live in a world full of pressures. Playing for a home World Cup, I mean, it doesn't get bigger than that in terms of pressure at home in the biggest stage of them all in women's cricket. Now, as a cricketer as well, you as a wicketkeeper specifically, you have to stay focused, but also be able to switch off behind the stumps. I mean, you're there minimum 4 hours, you know, or minimum 2 to 4 hours at a time. So how do you go about, you know, your mental preparation as a wicketkeeper, particularly at that highest level, when you know I mean, Shabnam Ishmael is about to bowl and she knows, you know, she's not going to be the most happy if, you know, if you don't take the catches. How do you stay focused and mentally prepared to perform at the highest level whenever you step out there?
You know, when I was in Poch, actually, Coach Fourie gave me this switch on, switch off. When the bowler's running in towards you, that's when you switch off. But as soon as you carry the ball and you throw it away, you switch off. And now recently, luckily I have the players like Ulefti always by, so we'll like talk a lot. And, you know, for me, kind of staying in the game is consistently talking to my bowlers or the players around me. And I usually switch between 3 languages, kind of to like, just keep myself entertained, you know. And the one thing is like literally just taking it one ball at a time. Yes, you are going to make a mistake, but what I've learned over the years and from the coaches that I've had is if you're literally going to stay in that one delivery, rather just stand there because you're going to make mistakes for the whole innings. And I think it's just to stay present. I think that's the one thing that has improved over the last couple of months is just being present and being patient. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Tumi. Fitness in cricket is a huge topic. I mean, over the many years, and a lot of there's this theory or myth that people have in terms of cricket that you don't need to be the fittest person, you know, in the world to play the sport. You don't need to be the fittest batter. Obviously, maybe as bowler you need to be, but you don't. It's not a sport that really, or the myth, as I say, it's not a sport that people think that you need to be fit, but it's definitely not the case. You need to be very fit, and obviously you wouldn't have a job if it wasn't the case. How, firstly, the importance and the growing importance of fitness within cricket. You've got so many matches coming up, all the formats as well, and also all the tournaments that pop up around the world as, you know, the game becomes popular. How important has your job and your role become in the last, you know, 10 years since you were a player to now, and where do you think it's still going?
I think it's very important, and I mean, just to kind of, I'd say, give a bit of a philosophy in terms of when you say in terms of skill versus fitness. is the one saying, which I kind of like, is that, fitness won't win you a World Cup, but it'll definitely lose you a World Cup. And I mean, fitness is all about having your best players on the field. That's number one. And that's my number one job, is to make sure that you have your best players playing at all times. And for that to occur, a player has to be, or have a certain level of fitness to be able to achieve that. Because sometimes it doesn't help if you have a very skilled player, but you can only play him every third or fourth game. Because in that second and third game, you don't have those guys that you're losing a game. And as a coach, if you're winning every third or fourth game, it's not going to work out well for you. So the big thing with the fitness is that you need to condition yourself to be able to play the amount of games required in a series. Let's say you're playing a 4-match, 5-match series. You need to be well conditioned enough to be able to play all those 5 games without incurring injury. And with doing that on the international scene, the intensity and the way cricket is moving because of the introduction of T20 cricket, the intensity has just gone up very, very high in the game. So it really, really requires the modern day cricketer to be really fit, because now guys are hitting bigger sixes and they're hitting sixes from ball one. So as a batter, in terms of keeping up with the trends, you need to be fit enough to be able to have that high output, power output for a long period of time. And again, also with bowling, your skill level, margins of error are so small. And if you're not fit enough to be able to be accurate and execute your skill throughout a 3-hour period or a 2-hour period, then you're going to be getting left behind. So that's how important the fitness is within the game. But again, the skill part, that's wickets and catches and runs win games. So that's your number one. But that's where we come in. We have to educate the players as to why you need to be, why is fitness important, and actually how does it feed you and your family? Because the athlete, his body is his asset, or him or her, their body is their asset. And if you're not looking after that asset that brings you income, then you're gonna lose out. And if you're playing, when I'm thinking as an athlete, if in a 4-match series, I can stay fit enough to play 4 games, and let's say I'm earning 100K per game, I'm making 400K. But if I'm only playing 2 games out of the series, I'm only getting 200K, and I'm shortchanging myself because I've got the skill to play, but I'm not fit enough to make enough or more money that I can. So that's how I'd like players to look at it. Is that investment in your fitness just makes you make more money.
Exactly. I was about to say, it's what you put in and it's what you'll get out. Let's just finish off. Sinalo, just last one from you, and then I'll go back for one more with Tumi. Sinalo, a youngster out there watching this, has watched your game and has followed your career so far, and they want to become the next Sinalo Jafta, whether that is wicket keeping or just playing for South Africa. Let's focus on wicket keeping for a bit. What is the pathway for this youngster if they want to become a wicket-keeper? Because you guys, it's a specialized skill within the game itself. On your knees, or you bending down a lot, and it's tough on your knees as well, and in your back. So what's the pathway to making it to this level?
I think the one thing I want to always take away is you don't want to be like me. You can use me as a base, but you always kind of want to bring yourself into it. You can use me as Usnalo, but I still want to show my own personality through it. And what I'd say to them is patience. I think for the longest time I thought I knew what patience was, whereas I didn't. And I think patience kind of ties in with kind of your life, and also when you're batting or when you're keeping, you kind of need those. And once you kind of understand what patience is, then I think your career will kind of go in the way that it's supposed to go. I think for me, the one thing is I wanted it now. forgetting that it's actually a journey to get there. I think the one thing that they should just focus on is like, it's a journey. There are going to be obstacles along the way. You are going to be disappointed, but always remember where you want to go, not where someone else has been, where you want to go. And I think that's literally what I'd say to the younger self or the younger person. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Tumi, just last one from you. Similar question to Sinalo. I'm sure you've encountered a lot of youngsters who are still at school or varsity, you know, and following the same path in terms of sports science and human movement science as well. What do you say to youngsters who are, as Sinalo says, not necessarily want to follow your journey? They might not be cricketers already, or they might play a different sport, but they've always had a passion for cricket. What are some of the fundamental skills and soft and hard skills as well that you'd want an individual, or you advise an individual to get if they want to be able to succeed and excel at this level, particularly as a fitness trainer?
Okay, I'd say first thing is that the theory or the knowledge of, you know, as you say, movement, the science of cricket, it's vital, but it's only 20% of the work that you'll do. 80% of what you do is communication, and that is key, how you communicate that knowledge that you have to the players in a way that they understand. So that's, I'd say the biggest thing is, for the upcoming trainers, understand how you communicate with people and how you get your message across of the knowledge that you want them to apply. And also be prepared to work hard, because being a strength and conditioning coach, you work long hours. So you just gotta be prepared for that. And also doing your own research into understanding the demands that the game has on the players. I'd say if you can do that very well and be able to help each individual to prepare for those demands, I think if you're able to do that as an SNC, you'll be in good stead. You'll do very well. So yeah, those in short.
Awesome. I think that's a perfect way to end this. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, exceedingly so, but I trust you were able to grasp a lot of the information that was spoken about here today from these esteemed guests. I want to thank every single person that is online today, obviously yourself, Tumi and Sinalo, and all the guests that joined me today. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone else does. I just want to inform everyone that this recording will be living on the YouTube page as well for Cricket South Africa. So it's something that you can always go back to and just listen in if you want some encouragement from people who've been there and done it. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And that brings us to the end of the first CSA Pathways in Cricket webinar, and we'll have the second episode, which looks at the off-field career opportunities and pathways to success, on Wednesday, the 28th of June, between 5 and 6:30, same time as today. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and that brings us to the end. Appreciate it. Thanks to me. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Lita. Have a good one.